Facebook, getting Instagram going today. I'm a little late, running a little late. Apologies for that. Let's see here. Let's go live on Instagram live. All right, we're live here. All right, so today is May the 3rd, 2022, and it's a little bit of a busy time, end of the semester at UNT, lots of fun summer projects coming up, and I'm excited for continuing to get to talk about my book. I just lent out my last copy to somebody, but the new book, Create, Connect, Repeat, is out. And today on the stream, if you're here for trombone information, we are announcing our second guest artist for the Jazz Trombone Bootcamp coming up this summer, but we'll talk about all those things in due time. Getting ready for the Trombone Festival this summer, the International Trombone Festival. The YouTubes from UNT will be performing. I'll be performing a recital of my own music, and also I'm kind of helping to coordinate the All-Star Jazz Night, which also features Steve Davis, and there's some other new people I'm really excited about. That there were some conflicts and new people got added, and it's really exciting. I don't want to blow up the ITF's announcements here. Taylor, you can ask questions wherever you want. But I'm excited about that, working on a big band arrangement. It's right here. You can't see it, but it's right there, working on this big band arrangement. But last week we announced that the first soloist, guest artist for the Jazz Trombone Bootcamp, June 13th through 17th, is Andy Martin, the great improviser, trombonist, musician, plays some film scores. He does everything out there in LA, and a Yamaha artist, and just a great inspiration, and a great trombone player, and everything. So I'm really excited that he's going to join us for the boot camp. So if you don't know what the boot camp is, the Jazz Trombone Boot Camp is 5 days of intense chatting, playing about jazz trombone. So every day we get together and we warm up. We talk about fundamentals. We talk about improvising. We have special topics throughout the week. We have my two TAs, DJ Rice and Jack Courtwright, offering some thoughts on arranging and doodle tonguing and multiple tonguing and all kinds of different things. As well as having our guest artists every day and playing tunes and getting some feedback. I'm looking to do more of that this year. So if you've been on before, if you come and maybe didn't get any direct feedback, I'm going to try to include a little bit more direct feedback, kind of like a studio class kind of situation where you can play something if you want and get some feedback from myself or from the TAs. So we'll be working on that, and I'm excited. And so Andy Martin will be there. We have a few other guests that are confirmed, but I'm going to kind of announce them one at a time to keep the suspense going. We only have, I think, only 9 or 10 slots left for the week. And so if you want to sign up, you can do that. nickfinzer.store. Go to my story, et cetera, all the places if you want to do that. So I'm going to leave you in a little bit of suspense. We're going to talk about some other things. And then we're going to obviously have our Q&A, so feel free to drop in the questions about anything. It doesn't have to be about this. It can be about jazz, trombone, music business, releasing records. Any of these type of things are welcome to be talked about. And then we will announce the second guest artist at some point during this. But I'll give you some hints here today. So if you're trying to guess, you want to think about who it might be, I'm going to give you a hint. This person is one of the best trombone players on the planet. There you go. There's hint number one. Really narrows it down, huh? And this person has been a mentor to me for a long time. One of my first mentors. So you can guess if you know anything about my upbringing as a musician. You can probably guess who it might be. But I'm really excited to have this person as part of the boot camp this year. Again, June 13th through 17th. It's like 11 to 4 Eastern or 10 to 3. All right, we can just announce it now. They got it. Kevin got it. Alton was probably just about to get it. Taylor's not correct. So the second guest artist is going to be the one, the only, the amazing, the illustrious, the can do anything on the trombone, and was one of my first mentors on the jazz side of trombone playing, and that's Wycliffe Gordon. So I'm very excited to have Wycliffe Gordon as a part of the Jazz Trombone Boot Camp. I'll post an official note up on Instagram and Facebook later. But you heard it here first. So Kevin got it. Kevin, somebody else last week guessed. It was Lawson Gardner. He guessed in the story, and he's like, "Is it Wycliffe Gordon?" What's up, John? So Wycliffe Gordon will be joining us, as well as Andy Martin, and we've got other great guests lined up. So get signed up if you want to come. It's not unlimited enrollment. It is virtual, but it can't have too many people, or else it just gets a little bit unruly, you know. Okay, so I'm going to jump to some questions. I see Ariel. Hi, Ariel. I see John's here. Taylor's here. I'm going to jump. I'm assuming there were a few questions from Taylor on Instagram. I'm going to come to those in a second. There's a question from Facebook. I'm going to hit that first. From Will North. Hey, Will. Thanks for watching. I'm a fellow Hilton alum, currently studying with Dr. Weiser. That's Nick Weiser, good friend from Eastman. At Fredonia. We have a concert tomorrow. I'm potentially soloing over my first bebop head, and I'm struggling to connect my brain and hand. Do you have any tips for simple but effective bebop lines? Oh, well, Taylor, you should tell him about our improv class. No, I'm kidding. Simple and effective bebop lines. Curtis Fuller, The Stroller. Find that. He's got some really simple, like bebop scale stuff that he does that lays really well on the trombone. I don't know what key the tune is, or you know what it is you're struggling with in particular, but the thing about playing bebop is you just have to play that language, and that means tools, it means transcriptions, it means it's an F, so this transcription's in B flat, so that's not gonna totally translate, but you've got to just play through that kind of vocabulary. So find bebop vocabulary to play through and get it under your slide. Open up the Omnibook, the Charlie Parker Omnibook, and start just playing through stuff. You got to get the language under your slide. So bebop scales, chromatic scales, arpeggios, obviously diminished. If you can learn some diminished scales, I mean, you're going to do that in a day, probably not. You know, that's a lot to learn in a day. But something simple and effective for your concert tomorrow would be just a bebop scale from C, B, B flat, A, G, F, E, D, C. You know, play that from all scale degrees. So start that scale, and then go up the scale and resolve it to F, right? So. And finding ways to start on different notes of that scale and resolve them to F major, right? Something like that. Hopefully that's somewhat useful. But, you know, in a day, you can't really do anything in terms of like internalizing a whole language in a day. So you're just on the beginning of your journey. So don't worry about it. Just go and play your solo, and then keep on moving. You know, there's always a lot to unpack there. Vincent Gardner. Vincent was a guest before. Bob McChesney is a guest. That's a good guess. We could get Bob McChesney. I haven't talked to him yet, though. Ryan Keberle. Ryan Keberle already was a guest. I'm trying to get lots of different people as guests before we do any repeats. This is the third year, so we have not had any repeats yet. So I'm going to keep doing that. For some reason, these etudes still don't go onto the screen. Jeffrey Miller was a guest at Jazz Trombone Day. Good guess. But we already said it was Wycliffe. It was a good guess, though. Okay, so what was the last trombone etude you worked on that has been challenging to master? I don't really work... Well, yeah, I have been working on Arbin's exercises, Arbin's characteristic studies. They're all hard in different ways, but I used number one from Wycliffe Gordon. Wycliffe Gordon assigned characteristic study number one to me a long time ago, and so I've used that with a lot of my students, and they'll tell you that I've tortured them with it as well. Sorry, guys, but it's a really effective tool. And so the Arbenz book is something that I didn't spend that much time with as an undergrad or a high school student, so I have found that those exercises have been nice to come to work on as well. So I'm doing Arbenz, I think it's number 3. It's in, I think it's number 3. But I don't really do jazz etudes that much. I've written some etudes trying to kind of create. If I do an etude over a jazz tune, it's usually about incorporating a specific skill or exercise, maybe like trying to, like I'd put out a book of etudes called, it's orange, there it is. Get Set, I couldn't remember which one it was. And so there's like some jazz language etudes, but the other half of it is like voice leading etudes, where it's like trying to, I usually call it like Bachify, basically like chord changes, playing like, you know, like a Bach cello suite type of thing. I'm really not trying to say that these are on the level of Bach's genius. Like let me just say that. I'm not purporting to be that, but playing through some changes in a similar kind of way. It helps you as a single note player in particular to hear the voice leading and practice the voice leading as that single note player rather than relying on harmony and hearing the harmony. Okay, what's up, Nate the Sax? What's up, Drums by Jeffrey? What's up, Modise? Thanks for joining. What was the last price of wisdom someone gave you on your playing? Piece of wisdom. How did that affect your view of yourself? I don't know, actually. I don't know if I have an answer for what was the last someone gave you a playing. You know, I hope he doesn't mind me sharing this, but I could say that one that pops to my mind, I think, because somebody had just said Ryan Keberly a minute ago. I remember Ryan Keberly, he told me, I guess it was a little while, I don't remember which record I gave him, and he was giving me some advice. Well, I just asked him what he thought about the record and, you know, if he had any advice of ways to move forward. And he just told me that he felt like it was too safe. And I thought that was an interesting observation, and I kind of agree. And as I'm putting together new music for a new project, I've noticed that sometimes I do tend to kind of go to the safe thing because I've developed kind of like a thing, like my band plays like this kind of a thing, and it's comfortable and it's hard to break out of. Yeah, but just that conceptually maybe it was too safe, or that it didn't challenge, like I didn't challenge myself enough to break out of like the way I normally play. And it wasn't, I don't know that he was necessarily saying that it was good or bad. He was just saying, like, knowing me and knowing my playing, he just felt like it was kind of like a safe version of it. And for him, he could have used more chances, take more risks. I thought that was an interesting observation, and I've thought about it. And I would like to think that I could embrace that more, but I think just like we've talked about, when you're practicing, you have to practice things you're bad at, and that's a difficult hurdle to get over. To practice things you're bad at, to sound bad all the time, you know, those are hard things to get yourself to do sometimes. So that's a thing. But yeah, I'm excited. I get to play with Ryan in a couple weeks. Going back to New York to do a couple nights at Dizzy's with the Gil Evans Project, with Ryan Truesdell's Gil Evans Project. So I'm excited about that. It's Ryan and me and George Flynn on bass, trombone, and I don't know if Marcus Rojas is playing at all that week. Any of the pieces are I forget. So Ryan always programs like way too much music. Sorry, Ryan. He programs a lot of Gil Evans music because he's got a lot of charts, and they're short, a lot of them. So there's a lot of music, and so sometimes like I'm never sure like which version of the Gil Evans project it is, like with like extra horns and flutes, or if it's like with the extra brass, or if I'm the extra brass. Like I'm not sure. So I think it's just 3 trombones this time. I don't know, but maybe vocals. I think there's a singer this time. Anyway, I'm looking forward to that in May. I'm going to Montana also with the Institute for Creative Music. We're doing a little tour, doing a little educational tour up to Missoula and Columbia Falls. Where are we going? Kalispell, Whitefish, up that way, up near Glacier National Park, where we've been a few times before, but it'll be good to get back there, connect with some people after school wraps up here in a couple weeks at UNT. So those things are happening. The Trombone Festival's happening. I'm playing at Birdland in August. I can't announce it yet, but I've got a gig with the big band in the fall in New York. That's going to be cool. And yeah, working on this new record of Here and Now music. Here and Now is my sextet, so the new sextet music. Trying to get that wrapped up and recorded. The big band record a couple weeks ago got recorded. There's a lot of things. I got to get these projects finished. Always a lot of things going on. What's up? Evo's here. Bass Gonzo. What's up? So Evo, you missed. He joined last week the boot camp from being here on the stream and hearing about Andy Martin. So I'm waiting for the next person to sign up after hearing about Wycliffe Gordon. It's going to be great. You don't like my giraffes, man? These are giraffes. Taylor. Anyway, so I'm done telling you about all the things that I'm doing. But we gave away the big reveal. I was trying to wait until 30 past the hour to drop the new guest artist for the boot camp. But it's Wycliffe Gordon. I'm excited. So Andy Martin, Wycliffe Gordon, and some other people coming up shortly. But you can find the links, nickfinzer.store, if you want to check it out. All right, more questions. Let's see. Stephen Pressfield said in one of his books that the amateur believes he must first overcome his fear, then he can do his work. The professional knows that fear can never be overcome. He knows that there's no such thing as a fearless warrior or a dread-free artist. Thoughts on that? My thoughts on that. My thoughts are that he's correct. Yeah, like the professional makes it happen, no matter the fear, right? No matter all the doubts and the resistance, like he talks about. If you're a professional, you do the thing, like you do it. You just make it happen. I have that all the time. Dread. Artistic dread, like, oh man, is this gonna suck? Am I gonna make this happen? Can I get this project finished? All that stuff. Man, it doesn't just go away. Maybe it does for some people, but for me, it's hard. It's hard to grapple with. But it's if you're a professional, you claim to be a professional, like I claim to be. You make it happen. You decide on the project that you're doing, and then you figure out a way to execute it, and then connect people with it the best you can. What could jazz education curriculums do better about preparing a student for real-world opportunities and networking? Well, first of all, no curriculum is perfect, and jazz education does get a lot of ridicule in general, but I find that it's kind of like it's both good and bad. That the jazz education curriculum in general, like on a broad scale, not talking about any school in particular, but just talking about the fact that now you can go to school for jazz music, and you have been able to for 30 or 40 years. That there's many, like my generation, for example, like almost all of us went to jazz school. And the parts of jazz school that help are the social ones, right? So like you learn a certain amount of skills from your classes, regardless of where you go, and it's about how you apply it. And you can apply that information whether you go to the best, most famous school or the smallest, least famous school. The notes are the same, the information is the same. It's how you connect with the professors and your fellow students, and what projects you can create, and what can you make happen with the information you're getting out of the curriculum. The curriculum is the curriculum, like it's whatever. Whether it's a busier one or a less busy one, it's up to you to take it and run with it. I wish that there was room in the curriculum to make everyone do more projects, but there's so much, like for example in our curriculum at UT, it's so full of things already that there's no room to like add more. But and all the things are important, like ensembles and playing in groups and like small group and big band and theory and piano class and all the things. I can't find one where I'm like, okay, well that's useless, you know. And I think mostly jazz curriculum, the way it's taught is different at different places, but mostly like what you do, you know, jazz history, improv class, all this stuff is kind of universal at a certain point. Like we didn't really have improv class at Eastman. It was rolled into ensemble, like jazz. They call it jazz performance workshop. It's kind of theory, kind of improv class, kind of a performance-based class. Like it's a lot of things wrapped into one, or at least it was when I went there. And at Juilliard we had an improv class, but it wasn't really much of a class because the class was huge. There was like 15 of us in the class or more. And like we would play hour-long versions of tunes, and it was like you played your couple courses and then just sat around. So that wasn't effective either. But in terms of the curriculum, like the only best thing I can say is that you got to go and make it happen for yourself. Like no matter where you go to school, it's up to you to develop the network of peers, because they're the ones that call you for stuff. Like your professor can like open up a few doors. You know, my professors have opened up important doors for me along the way, 100%. And I will not give them credit, because they absolutely did. But you gotta make it happen for yourself. You know, you gotta figure it out for yourself, and you gotta make bands, make projects, have organizations, be a leader amongst your peers. And you know, those are the people that I get calls from. Those are the people that I talk to. Those are the people that are my friends, my people I rely on, or the people that I went to school with. You know, and where the gigs come from, that's mostly it. You know, it's recommendations, personal recommendations. I need somebody for this. I ask somebody I trust. So Evo asked, what about the curriculum at UNT? So the curriculum at UNT it's a little complicated with us because it's a state school, it's a big school, so there are certain academic requirements that the undergrads have to take, right? Whereas like at Eastman there were some, but not as much as maybe UNT has in terms of like humanities classes, or like, what do they call them here? Just like core classes, academic type classes. But like arranging, improv class, small ensemble, large ensemble, all that stuff is the same. There's some kind of like weekly get together, you know. The thing that happens here is that because our program is large, so that means there's a large amount of classes, there's a large amount of performing ensembles, which means there's a large amount of concerts, which means everyone's time gets pulled in a million directions, which can be really difficult for many of us to deal with, students and faculty. But in terms of like adding stuff, like doesn't need to, I don't think we really need to add things. We just need to continue to push towards a curriculum that is more inclusive of creation, not just like talking at people. And I think we have been doing that. It's just a matter of, I mean, at a certain point, like it is what it is. Like you're going to school to get a jazz degree, you need to know tunes, you need to know vocabulary, you need to do transcriptions, you need to take lessons, you need, like, those are the things you would expect, right? So Anyway, let's get off of this topic. What's up, Renato? What's up, Jason? Feel free to drop in your any questions you have. Today we were talking about a little bit about Wycliffe Gordon being the next guest artist for our Jazz Trombone Bootcamp. I saw a question from John a while back that I missed. Let me scroll back here. Can you recommend any theory books for neophytes that want to learn in addition to the horn? Theory books? Look, I don't know that there's like necessarily like a theory book I would recommend. I think that in jazz, it's like theory in process, right? And in theory in practice. And improvisation is knowing all those things, but knowing the rules of, I mean, there's some that I would recommend. So kind of on a basic level, do I have it here? It might be up there somewhere. But there's a FAUX is the name of this guy, Fux. It's counterpoint. It's a counterpoint book, and it teaches species counterpoint. And I think it's super effective in terms of learning tunes and understanding how harmony works. You just learn species counterpoint, and you start to improvise in species counterpoint. So species counterpoint is note against note, 2 notes against note, 3 notes against note, 4 notes against 1 note, and there's rules about how the notes move from consonants to dissonance and dissonance to consonants. And it's not that you need to follow all the rules 100% of the time, but knowing the rules is pretty important. Knowing the rules is pretty important to gaining understanding. And then once you understand, you can make whatever choice you want with that information. That's fine. Like I don't necessarily think that you need to be dogmatic about following the rules all the time, but you can be like, that sounds weird. Oh, maybe it's because I'm breaking the rules of counterpoint, that it sounds best when. So that's one, but it's not really a theory book. It's a counterpoint book. In terms of theory, I would go to a jazz piano book, the Jazz Piano Book. But ultimately, theory is pretty easy. It's just a way of organizing the notes, and there's many ways to do that. So if you think about kind of a systematic approach to it, this guy named Miles Okazaki, great guitar player, he's got a great book. What does he call it? Modern Guitar Fundamentals. I forget what it's called. He was working on it when we used to teach jazz camp together. He was working on this book, and he just goes through, and it's got like all the different combinations of 2 notes, 3 notes, 4 notes, 5 notes, 6 notes, 7 notes. Because there's only 12 notes, so he goes through them all. And I guess he did it on Instagram, maybe is what I'm thinking of. But and then he makes shapes out of them. Like they have like 4-sided squares and rectangles and triangles, and you're just trying to learn about all the different ways to organize the notes. So there's 4 parent scales in terms of our 7-note scales. Like in Western music, we use these 7-note scales: major, melodic minor, harmonic major. So those are the 4 that give you all the 7-note scales. Right, in the Western sense of harmony. And with those 4, there's 7 modes in each one. So there's the root mode, and then there's 6 other ones that go with it. Some of them we use all the time. A couple modes of harmonic minor we use frequently. A couple modes of melodic minor we use frequently. Sometimes harmonic major, definitely less so. But I think if you go through and you learn all of those sounds, you start to understand. So like you're just understanding that you're in a key, right? And then you're moving to another key. And that's how music works. It goes from one sound to the next, and it goes tonic, predominant, dominant. Now, maybe I'm oversimplifying, but you also have to look and analyze compositions and say, like, how do these people move? How does this work? And you'll notice, like, if you go to like Liszt versus Beethoven versus Wagner versus something more like, sorry, Liszt was like the more modern example in that, but like even more like Berg and all the Webern and these type of composers, like they're experimenting with different ways of organizing the pitches, and they're organizing tension and release. That's all it is. And so jazz has the same thing. If you go from bebop is kind of like the Baroque period, and then you go into like Wayne Shorter modal stuff, that's like the Romantic period, and then you go post that, it's just like classical music now. It's like all these things. Like modern classical music is not only atonal, it's like a lot of things. The same with jazz. It's not only atonal, modern is like means a lot of things. So if you can organize and know all the modes, you know, of all four, and then you've got symmetrical scales like chromatic, whole tone, diminished, right? So that's like half steps, whole steps, minor thirds, major thirds. And then you got fourths and fifths and sixths and sevenths. But that kind of gets you through most of the information. If you want to go to like the Slonimsky book, that's what like Train was checking out. If you want to go and just like read theory textbooks, you could do that too. That sounds pretty boring to me though. Anyway, it's all about just figuring out on your own like how to organize the notes. Okay. Let's see. I got time for one or two more questions here. Let's see. Here you go. Psychologically, artists have a challenging time with rejection in any setting. It's like we're programmed to think that rejection leads to failure. How much rejection did it take you to feel confident in knowing that there were bigger and better things ahead? That's an ongoing thing, man. It's ongoing. But the thing about being a musician, the thing about trying to do a lot of things, a lot of projects, is that you get rejection like almost all of the time, right? So you're booking a project. You just have to realize that a lot of times it has nothing to do with you, and it has nothing to do with your music, and it has nothing to do. The hard part for artists is that our identity is intermingled with our work and is defined by our work. It was for a 13-year-old student. I don't know if it changes my answer. I'll go to if you want jazz theory though, go to jazz theory book. I would go to the Mark Taylor jazz piano book, and you'll learn kind of theory through that. But modes of major, start there. Okay, but what was I talking about? I totally derailed myself realizing that I didn't answer your question, John. Oh yeah, so dealing with rejection and being kind of intrinsically linked, you know, like your worth, your social life, everything is, as a musician, and I think different arts, it's not just being a musician, I'm just talking from my perspective, you know, like it's so intertwined and ingrained that we have a hard time disassociating someone not liking your music with not liking you, or like making a constructive comment means they don't like your music. Like those things are not necessarily true. Making an observation about something that could be better does not mean that I didn't like it, for example. But we get it in our head that could be the case. So to deal with that, or, you know, you just have to get a little bit of a thicker skin and not really care what anyone thinks, good or bad. You just have to make some stuff that you think is interesting, and you will find your audience, and you will find people that agree with your perspective, because not everyone will agree all the time, and I don't even like what I write sometimes, you know. So how could I expect somebody else to? You have to be confident in what you're creating, or at least like this is me. Here you go. And you know, one phrase that I use, and I think it's especially relevant for like social media. I think it's like thinking about the phrase, "This is not for everyone," or like "This is not for you." Like when I make something, it's not for everyone. It's for only the people that want that thing. So if you don't like it, then it's not for you automatically, right? So if you think about it like that, that has helped me. Like, okay, well, if you don't like trombone, there's no chance my music is going to be appealing to you, right? Or if like you don't like modern jazz, whatever that means, you probably won't like my music. But if you do, then I hope that this is appealing to you, you know? And so that's kind of how I've dealt with it, and how like I can keep posting on social media different types of things, because like, well, it's only for these people, so it would make sense that anyone that isn't that exact group of people wouldn't like it. So it doesn't bother me that like the saxophone players don't like my trombone technique video or something like that, you know, because it's not for them. So that's helpful for me. What's up, Hollywood? Rafa, as a neurodivergent musician, I'm always working on being more aware of how much rejection helps me to find a sense of understanding and how to get from point A to point B. Yeah, I mean, rejection is important, and like it's such a big word, and it feels more than it is, you know, like rejection. Like it feels like this huge thing, but it's like anytime somebody doesn't answer your email about booking your band, that's a rejection, you know. So you're dealing with it all the time, and I've been booking a band since I started playing music. I had a band in high school, and so trying to like get all that happening, you know, that is super important to get. This is not for you, you know, and like you got to go through the rejections, and like I didn't get in everywhere where I wanted to go to school. I tell my students this all the time, so I have them focus sometimes certain semesters like on these jazz trombone competitions, and sometimes certain years we're able to do that with our jazz trombone ensemble too, and we've been very fortunate that they've won a couple times. My students have won. We have ones that are finalists this year. All that is great, but it's not really about that. Like it's about having a little bit of a project and a goal, but like I never won any of them. I won one of them one time, and I got rejected from most of them most of the time. And I say like, look, like I didn't win these things, and it helped me work harder. It helped me go towards what I needed to address in my weaknesses. It helped me find like-minded musicians. It helped me find, you know, my people, as it were. Like, there's plenty of people that succeed in those like micro moments that are not doing what you want in the end. And so I try to, and I tell this to artists all the time when we're talking about records, talking about projects, social media, whatever. You got to think as big of term as you can, as long of term as you can, especially at the beginning, because we get wrapped up in like next year, next semester, this week, final, midterm, jury, blah, 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 blah. It's like, it's not about that. It's about this bigger amount of time of making progress towards something. So, hey, thanks for hanging out. Appreciate that. All right, well, I got to run for today. Let's see. We'll be back next week. I think so. Next Tuesday, same time, May 10th. We'll be announcing the rest of our guest artists very soon for the Jazz Trombone Bootcamp. Go to nickfinzer.store if you want to join us June 13 through 17. Want to get the rest of everyone signed up for that so we can start organizing everything. So I'm looking forward to it. It's just like 6 weeks away. So hopefully we'll get everyone registered. So thanks for being here, and we'll catch you soon.